Hello everybody, happy Tuesday. Here we are as always, and thank you for being here in whatever capacity that is that you are able to. Every week, every day, every Tuesday, but especially this week because there's some moving energy, so people might have some things that are kind of popping up out of the middle of nowhere, taking off, things like that. So people might be a little busier than they anticipated. So I'm gonna put our intention up here. If you have not seen it already, it's always released on Sunday, but if you haven't seen it yet, here it is. I seek discernment and clarity as energy alternates. I seek discernment and clarity as energy alternates. So whether or not this is the first time you've heard the intention, think on that for just a second and just see what comes up. Feel on it, meditate on it, think on it for a second, and just see what comes up yourself. I think whether you do it ahead of time or in these first couple minutes, if you spend a little bit of time with the intention yourself and just kind of see what brews, see what it feels like. You don't have to know any of the aspects that are going on in the sky, let alone understand them, or whatever, think you understand them. We all understand them by experiencing them in one way or another. Just see what comes up. Yeah, it's a good thing. So, and take a minute to look in the comments here. Hi Kevin, hi Mary. It's good to see you both here live. Kevin, you've been pretty busy lately. Amazing energy the last few days. That's good. I'm glad to hear that. So the full moon yesterday, which would be Monday the 19th. I don't know, it was one of those super moons, so it's much closer. But that moon was absolutely beautiful. So I saw it yesterday morning, like just before work, so it was towards the western sky as it was getting ready to set, and that moon was just so big, beautiful, gorgeous, and it was cool the position that I saw it in that western sky, kind of like as it was setting. I didn't notice it necessarily outside in the evening, but it caught my attention in the morning as it was setting, so rather rising in the east and setting in the west, and it just felt like a cool, like, shift, change, like setting, ending, beginning type situation, which has a little bit to do with our intention this week. Hey Nikita, good to see you here too. I hope everybody is having a great week and things are just moving up and up. So like I said, a few things going on this week. So the full moon was yesterday. A couple aspects that are playing into that. When we have aspects that happen around the full moon, not only is there a little bit longer lifespan because it kind of takes us from that full moon towards the new moon of the starting of the next cycle. But also when you have that opposition between the sun and the moon, you have that amplification, you have that polarization of the opposition, and things are amplified and things are multiplied and things are intensified through the opposition. And when you have it of the sun and the moon, which is what a full moon is, you have both of the luminaries. So you have our inner light and you have our outer light, whether that's on a personal level or a collective level. So it just amps up everything, no matter what full moon it is. But then it kind of emphasizes the axis that the full moon is happening across. So it was a full moon at 27 Aquarius, so moon in the sign of Aquarius, sun in the sign of Leo. There is a lot about, first of all, Leo is the place of the sun. There's a lot within the sign of Leo about caring for oneself and lifting up oneself. Leo, we've talked about before how Leo does lift up others, but Leo, the pure Leo energy, this is not just saying anybody that has like a Leo sun or a Leo placement, Leo moon, Leo rising, whatever. There's a lot to do with it, but pure Leo energy has this way that it wants to lift other people up and elevate others, but there's this way that either Leo has to be fulfilled itself in order to give to others, or there's this way that sometimes Leo will lift others up in order to elevate themselves. So sometimes that can come across as a little bit self-centered or like doing something nice because like because it's going to make you look good. But on the other hand, it's sharing generosity. It's the Leo having so much full in their cup that they are willing to share the extra and the abundance that they have with others, so that way not only they can have that joy and like that fulfillment of whatever the thing is, but so can others. So there's those two different ends of the spectrum there in the sign of Leo. And then Aquarius, on the other hand, where Leo, the place of the sun, focuses on that solar light, that light here within our own space here, right? And how that shines out, allowing our light to shine as well as allowing other lights to shine. The sign of Aquarius is much more of a group, much more of a collective. If Leo is the me, then you flip it over and Aquarius is the we. There's a lot of concern about the group and the overarching effect on the all. Aquarius is as standout as Aquarius can be. It has a way in which it's willing to kind of put itself aside in a way that it allows. Sorry, I'm not saying this quite the way I want it to. Give me just a second here. So, in the sign of Aquarius, rather than focusing on the personal individual, it focuses on the whole of the group. So what will benefit the collective? What will benefit the group? What will benefit the we rather than just me? Like, maybe I am my own individual person, but sometimes what is more important is looking at the group or looking at the whole. So there's this little bit of like the me versus the we. There's the fire and the passion and the drive versus the intellect. So like that movement and go, that outward expression versus the air. So versus the thoughts and the mental processes. So Leo is much more action, much more like outward expression, where Aquarius could be more of the mental realm expression. So that's the duality that we have just behind the full moon that happened yesterday, but then there's the aspects that happen around it too. So Sunday, full moon was on Monday. Sunday, in the evening, like 9:45, 9:50 p.m. Eastern time, my time, we had Mercury Cazimi. So Mercury was in the heart of the sun through the weekend, in that place of invisibility, and then coming into a conjunction with the sun on Sunday. So this happened 2 days ago, if you're watching this live with us. So there's this, we start off the week with this resetting period for Mercury. Anytime a planet comes into conjunction with the sun, we have a resetting point and a new phase or cycle for that planet. So Mercury is starting something new within its retrograde cycle. The first part of the retrograde cycle is coming through and revising, revisiting, seeing what needs to happen and what needs to be changed, what needs to be shifted up or shaken up a little bit. And then we have the conjunction, where there's this seeding point for something new. There may still be some things that we're reworking through the rest of the retrograde, but then we're going to start to move through in a forward manner, in a forward motion. So in the sign of Leo, so Mercury retrograde started in the sign of Virgo, and Mercury is conjoining the sun in the sign of Leo before it starts to move forward again. So when you have Mercury Cazimi conjunction with the sun in the sign of Leo, in the sun's sign, remember that Mercury rules the mind, the intellect, the communication, the way we talk with others, the way we process things that others have to say with us, that whole mental realm. In a conjunction with the sun in the sign of Leo, it makes me think of a resetting or a realignment of the heart-mind connection. So maybe we've been considering for the last few weeks how we're disconnected from our heart space, how maybe we're not feeling things quite as much as we should, we're not expressing things maybe the way that we think we should or used to or ought to, or whatever the thing may be for you. And maybe now there's a time for realignment and bringing back to that self. That this happens just before the full moon, like less than 24 hours before the full moon, in the place where the sun is during the full moon. It amplifies that focus on the self. So if early on in this week, you know, it's only Tuesday, it feels like you're trying to focus personally, focus on the self. If people are calling you selfish, people are telling you that you're self-centered, you know, sometimes there's a time to be, but keeping the broad perspective of others at the same time. So this is our first start of energy alternations that we have. The other word that I was using was exchange. So we have lots of different changing energies, and this is the first change that we have this week is Mercury Cazimi resetting itself as it comes across the sun, makes that conjunction with the sun, and starts its new synodic cycle for whatever it is that Mercury wants to create. Looking at the sign of Leo. So where is something new happening where Leo is within your own chart and the energies that you have there? At the same time as Mercury is coming across the sun, and then we have the full moon on Monday, there's a aspect that's called a T-square between Saturn, Jupiter, and Venus. So we've been talking about the Saturn-Jupiter square for quite a while, right? We are now in the peak of that. We've been talking about how it's the overarching systems that are within our lives, the paradigms, the systems, the patterns within our lives, those overarching, wide, broad spectrum structures, organization, institutions that we belong to, the collective connections that we have, the different groups that we're a part of, shifts within those. So shifts with our own personal beliefs and related to these things, how we start to, you know, maybe we start to have some changes within our mind of how we feel like we should interact with different groups, maybe how different groups interact with us, different institutions, organizations, and overarching structures. So that can be your own personal beliefs within your own life. Maybe your mind is starting to change about something a little bit, or it could be in a more collective level. It could be like if on a personal level, it's like your personal beliefs and your morals and your own personal ethics. On a wider scale, you could look at like a governmental system that governs over, you know, a group of people or something like that. So there's changes and there's shifts, and we can see this too when I say like widespread of like collective. In the United States, we see this right now with like shifts happening within our government and the structures, right? Like things are changing, things are shifting. We've had some shifts, not here to be political whatsoever, but it's very obvious that there are things happening a little bit differently than they've happened before. Like our president stepping down and saying that he's not going to run for office and bringing his vice president up. Like that's different. That doesn't happen all the time. That's something different. Whether you think it's good or bad, that has nothing to do with it. We're not here to debate any of that. We're just noting that there are systematic changes that are occurring on some level. So happening collectively as well as personally. And this is something that has been building for the last little while. This square between Saturn and Jupiter, okay? So you have this interaction with Saturn and Jupiter. They're in a square format. Saturn and Venus come into an opposition this week, okay? So what a T-square is a formation of an opposition. So you have, think of a planet, you know, at the top and a planet at the bottom. So we have Venus and we have Saturn in opposition with each other. And then you have a planet that is square to both of those planets. So you end up with this like sideways triangle shape. So you have an opposition here, and then you have a square that is interacting with both of the planets because it's squaring both of the planets that are in that opposition. Okay, just trying to draw this out a little bit for you. So all three of these planets are interacting together. You have the opposition, which creates a contrasting push and pull. Think about that magnet analogy that we use for oppositions. So there's this pulling together when the magnets are turned a certain way, but then there's this way that they can repel and push away from each other. So you have this polarization in any opposition, just like we just talked about with the full moon. It doesn't matter what the opposition is. So you have this contrasting opposition here, and then you throw a square in. The square puts a little bit of a tension that makes us want to move. So remember that squares are of the nature of Mars. They're scratchy aspects. They are aspects that make us uncomfortable or put us in a position to where like something has to be done. There's some sort of action, some sort of movement. So if we've had this overarching square between Saturn and Jupiter building as far as these changes to overarching broad systems and paradigms within our lives, now we're throwing Venus into the mix of that. Okay, so Venus is now part of this, and it's so if we've been looking at these changes and these shifts and like maybe how these overarching systems are not serving us very well anymore, you add Venus and Virgo and into the square, and now you're looking at the details that go into the structures, the details that go into our beliefs, which is Jupiter, the systems and the frameworks, Saturn. Systems falls under both Jupiter and Saturn, but in different ways. Saturn is more of like that foundational framework structure. I like the word framework because I think of like the frame of a house that you build on. Where Jupiter is more the beliefs that belong with the system. It's the ethics, it's the morals, it's what fuels those systems behind of like what you're trying to go for, what the overarching view is and the overarching idea and ideal is. So these planets have been working together for quite a while. Now we're throwing Venus in. So now Venus is looking at the details of these structures and throwing a wrench into like, how do these systems do or do not bring us joy? How do they bring us fulfillment, or how do they not fulfill us anymore? This might be the point where we start to notice like the systems have been starting to kind of change, but now we're starting to notice it, or now it's within our own mental sphere and we're able to kind of see it and feel it in a little bit more tangible way. So Virgo's an earth sign, so it brings that form and that solidness to like it feels what it feels like right now at this moment, and what I'm like hearing in my head is like it brings it to the reality. So there's been this shift and there's been this change. Maybe it's been in the background a little bit, but maybe now you're able to notice like the shift that's happening. Maybe you're able to see it a little bit more. It's an opening square between Saturn and Jupiter from their conjunction when Jupiter was in the sign of Pisces. Sorry, give me just a second there. Brain shut down for half a second. So it's an opening square between Jupiter and Saturn. So it's looking to create something. It's looking to if something was seeded when the two planets conjoined together, now this is opening up where now we're going to start to see the individuation of it. So it's going to start to come into a little bit more form, a little bit more idea, like maybe where we've been thinking about different structures and different changes, now we're like actually putting them into action, or Venus is giving us more of that desire to move towards whatever it is that is shifting, whatever that is changing, in order to bring a little bit more harmony, a little bit more joy, a little bit more pleasure, and a little bit just something that feels better. Remember that what we think will feel better doesn't always feel better, so thinking that through fully before going for it. So these aspects are all a part of the full moon. They're all a part of this whole week. So you have Mercury Cazimi, resetting point for Mercury. You have this opening square that has been coming into formation between Saturn and Jupiter. Saturn and Jupiter are both in mutable signs right now, so they are in the sign of Pisces and the sign of Gemini. Those are changeable signs. Those are signs that are fluid, moving, and they are willing to mold and form into something different. So that's another part of the change that we're seeing, rather than like the resistance you could possibly see with the square. So you have these, and now June, now you throw Venus into the mix this week, and you have that other leg that creates this T-square. So there's this tension. Venus is in Virgo, which is another mutable sign. So you have the T-square between the mutable signs. So you have these three planets that are looking at overarching systems and how they bring us joy and fulfillment and how they do or do not work for us. And the tension, the pressure cooking tension that we are kind of put under are in signs that are willing to change. The mutable signs are the signs that we find in between seasons. So think about Pisces. Pisces is the connection between winter and spring. Astrologically speaking, if you live in the northern hemisphere, then you just so happen to be where it lines up. Astrologically speaking, Gemini takes us from spring into summer, and Virgo takes us from summer into fall. Sagittarius, the other mutable sign, takes us from fall into winter. So you have that seasonal shift where things are changing and things are shifting form on their own, because that's just kind of what happens naturally in these mutable signs here. So there's lots of change. There's lots of change within these mutable signs that we have going on this week. Venus opposite Saturn just on its own brings a seriousness or a focus. It could bring delays, or better yet, it could bring some sort of like mature, or like, I don't like using the word mature, but like an experienced point of view, because mature makes it feel like something else was like immature, and immature, it feels like something not so good. So I don't like that so much. Sorry, soapbox. Anyways, so you have Venus opposite Saturn on its own. Looking at what brings us joy and fulfillment in a tangible way, but looking at those details because it's in the sign of Virgo. And then we also have Sun squaring Uranus. This was Monday also, excuse me. Before the Sun moves into the sign of Virgo on Thursday. Happy birthday to you, Virgo suns. The Sun will come into a square with Uranus. So this also feels like it just kind of like ups the change. Most of our aspects this week are in these mutable signs, are in these flexible, changeable signs, except for the square between the Sun and Uranus. And what does Uranus like to do? It likes to change things. Revolution of purpose, drive, outward expression, something noticeable, some sort of noticeable difference, because the Sun illuminates things. So if it seems like things feel different in a physical, tangible way, that's because they are shifting and changing. If it feels like there's some tension there between the square, if it feels like there's a way that we need to change something in order to have that solar fulfillment, in order to feel like we are totally lit up, here's Sun and Uranus telling us that there might need to be some change, there might need to be some revolution going on here. And then the Sun moves into Virgo, into one of the mutable signs that we are talking about. When the Sun moves into Virgo, we'll be in the same sign as Venus, will be ruled by Mercury. Lots of things ruled by Mercury going on here this week. So the Sun moves into the mutable sign as well, where it's a little bit more able to shift, change, in order to move forward. And on this day also, Thursday, Mars comes into a square with Venus. So both Mars and Venus are both in Mercury signs. Mars is in the sign of Gemini, Venus is in the sign of Virgo, and they're squaring each other. Like I said, both of them are in Mercury sign. Mercury just started its new cycle earlier this week, so it feels like Mars and Venus want to start something new, something fresh. Sun Uranus emphasized that. The Mercury Cazimi emphasizes that. The square between Saturn and Jupiter that we've been working towards is emphasizing that things are changing. But then Mars and Venus come together, and it's like these two want to work together to try to change something. When you have any interaction between between Mercury and Venus, highlights a level of duality and a level of two parts either pushing away from each other or coming together. Mars is that quintessential masculine energy, and Venus is that quintessential feminine energy, right? The two are very different from each other in many different ways, but in many ways they need each other in order to work well. Other than the sun and the moon, the Mars and Venus are often referred to as the lovers, as components that are together, and that's been like an age-old thing in many, many different stories. You have Mars and Venus coming together in some sort of passionate love of whatever it is. So there's this duality within the interaction between Mars and Venus. It's a square, so there's that scratchy aspect that makes us want to move, makes us want to change. So there's some sort of shifting change being prodded, being amplified here between the masculine and the feminine energy. So where are you ready to shift something related to this mental duality and how these two energies can work together to create something? It's an opening square between these two planets. They conjoined in February of 2022, so you can think about, or 2024, so you can think back to February and kind of like what was started, what was initiated back in February, and now where do you see that starting to come into the next level, the next phase of fruition somehow. So these two planets together in the square, there's some tension between the two of them, and what they can do is they can either push away from each other or they can pull together. They can come together and unify what each one has to offer, and they can work together like in a partnership or a relationship, or they can see their differences and they can push each other away and say that one is better than the other, or the other is wrong, or something like that. It can be very opinionated in its own way. So they can either work together and they can unify what they both have to offer, which is strength and grace. It's introvert energy and extrovert energy. It's knowledge, like outward known knowledge. It's inner wisdom coming together. Or they can turn their backs on each other, like two halves that can't be a whole. So think about like coming back to kind of like a love analogy of some kind. Think about like a heart. Think about the two halves broken apart together. You can have the two separate halves of the heart, but if you bring them together, then you actually have the heart, right? Like you don't have the full-on heart until they come together. So there's this way that masculine and feminine energy needs each other. We all have masculine and feminine energy within us. We all have a Venus, we all have a Mars. Some of us have maybe a little bit more masculine energy than others. Some might have a little more feminine energy than others. And this is not a purely gendered role. Like it's not saying man versus woman. It's masculine versus feminine, or yin versus yang energy. So that masculine energy is that more outward, forward, kind of like in your face energy, where feminine energy is much slower, a little bit more subtle, a little bit more quiet perhaps, and those two can work together in many, many different ways. Venus can bring a softness to Mars's edge, and Mars can motivate Venus to move towards something a little bit like out of her comfort zone, where maybe Venus just wants to stay comfortable where it's nice and cozy and she has, all the things that she wants. Think about Taurus and Libra as Venus's sign. Think about Aries and Scorpio as Mars's sign. So there's this duality here at the end of the week between these two planets, and opening square. So how can they work together? What kind of change are they making? There is lots of ability, or lots of tones of change going on this week. All of these aspects can definitely go either way. So if there are some like polarizing things, or like some like triggering type things that happen, slow down, take a nice deep breath, and remember our intention, because I seek discernment and clarity as energy alternates. Think of our intention. I seek discernment and clarity as energy alternates. So as energy alternates, as it changes, as it starts to move in different ways, as it starts to change its form, as it starts to think of maybe doing things other ways, Jupiter and Saturn, seeking that discernment and seeking that clarity. Sometimes that means just slowing down, thinking about things a little bit slower, taking your time, making sure you've considered all things. Mercury is still retrograde, but just slowing down. And as the sun moves into the sign of Virgo and we get more Virgo energy, that discernment and that ability to look at all the different parts becomes a little bit more amplified. But there's some change this week. There's some possibilities of change, and I think just trying to maintain an openness, a flexibility, being open to new thoughts, experiences, communications. With the Mars Venus, if things seem a little brash or a little harsh, maybe they are. But if it's within reason, and if it's feasible, and it's not like something that is, inappropriate and extreme, we all know where the boundaries need to be, explore it if you can. Maybe if somebody is saying something to you that comes off a little bit harsh or something like that, maybe try to see like how you can see their side, or how you can like take a different approach to the communication or to the action or whatever like that. See how you can bring that Venus and Mars together. There could be tension of opposites. There could be arguments, disagreements. There could be equality differences. There could be some seriousness when it comes to Venusian type things this week. And there's definitely can be there's some tension and there's some pressure there within these aspects. But there can also be a unification and a harmony that comes from all of these different things that are going on. All of these different moving parts and pieces is what it feels like. It feels like there's different gears that are all moving in different ways, like the little spinny gears that catch each other, and they all move different ways. So being open, being flexible, while still having that ability to clearly judge and try to see the whole picture at the same time, so that way we don't lose our footing and get carried away in these mutable signs. Lots of change, lots of moving around, lots of different parts. So I want to ask you, and I want you to consider, what is changing within your own life? What is at a point where you can see that things are not going to be the same way that they were? Where the mutable signs are, those areas of your life where we're talking right now. So Pisces, Gemini, Virgo, those areas of your life, since there are mutable signs there's probably already some change and some flexibility that happens. There's some flux there. So you might not always notice it, because you might kind of be used to this changing form where these different signs show up in your chart. So I seek discernment and clarity as energy alternates. I seek discernment and clarity as energy alternates. As things are changing, as things are shifting, allow me to take the time to not move too fast. We have squares, we have Uranus. They are things that could make us feel like we need to just act, and we need to act right now. But take your time and see what else is coming up. And that's what I see with the cards that we pulled here today. So the Hierophant, I can't, sorry, I'm trying to see. I have notes that are usually up on the screen at the first part, and if I don't move it, then you can't see the card. So we have the Hierophant here, Hierophant, however you say it. Okay, so that's the first card, and then the Two of Wands popped out at the same time right along with it. Did not feel the need to pull an oracle card or any sort of follow-up after this. So the Hierophant is the masculine counterpart to the High Priestess card. So if the High Priestess is that inner spiritual knowing, spiritual knowledge, then the Hierophant is that outward masculine expression, so that we see it a little bit louder and a little bit more like not as subtle, a little bit louder. So you have this, give me just a second. So you have this high masculine spiritual energy. So seeing, to me, this comes across as a more tangible way, as a more expressive way. Okay, so these different beliefs and these different spiritual beliefs and personal beliefs that you have within you, how strong are they? Especially in the mutable signs, as our personal beliefs are starting to shift and starting to change. Like, how strong are these systems and are these structures? Not that one's better than the other, but when I see the High Priestess, I think of like an inner spirituality that kind of comes from within somewhere. And when I see the Hierophant, I think of like institutions of religions and groups that come together with their beliefs that they like all subscribe to together. So like maybe if a personal spirituality is a little bit more individualized, the Hierophant is a little bit more group focused. So it's bringing a focus to these overarching systems, beliefs, groups that we are a part of. But it's telling us in the Hierophant card that there is a deep knowledge within each and every one of us that will guide us. So that discernment and that clarity as things are starting to change, I think that lines up pretty well with this. And then the second card was the Two of Wands. The Two of Wands is a card that has lots of inspiration, lots of action and motivation to move forward. Wands represents the fire element, so there is that motivation and that like drive to move and to do something. But if you notice in the Two of Wands, in this card, the dragon is holding one of the wands still. So basically the idea is that one of the wands are not ready to move forward yet. If you look in the Rider-Waite deck, you'll see like a man holding one of the wands, and then the other one is like nailed to a wall or something like that. So you have the idea that there's lots to go yet, right? There's lots of progress to be made. There's lots of moving forward. And we're going to move forward, but maybe we're not ready to move forward quite yet. Maybe we need to slow down and be a little discerning and make sure we have clarity and make sure we know exactly what is what. Masculine energy, think of Aries, think of Gemini, think of Leo. Masculine energy likes to move forward, and it likes to change, and it likes to do things, but it wants to know where it's going usually. Gemini can be kind of all over the place and like have lots of things going, but there's a goal, there's a motivation. Usually that goal and motivation is to learn, to bring more knowledge, information, and experiences in the sign of Gemini. So there's always a specific outwardly expressed goal here. So the two cards together, I feel like they're telling us that there's a lot to do. So there's probably a lot of change that is coming. Things are going to be totally different in one way or another. That does not mean good or bad. Things are going to be different at some point, and you're starting to see that change. You're starting to see that shift, but you probably need a little bit more knowledge and a little bit more information. There's probably a little bit better results that could potentially come if you give yourself a little bit more time and a little bit more space, just to be sure that you are considering all of the pieces. So I guess kind of what I'm saying this week is allow yourself to move forward, allow yourself to flow, but keep yourself grounded. Keep your feet on the ground while you are flowing back and forth here. And stay in that point of being able to judge if this is the right way to go, or if we should hold off a little bit if it just feels like we're supposed to be changing right now. So there we are. The mutable signs, they can be a little bit back and forth. So it could feel like you're kind of like pulled in different directions in different ways. But lots of good energy. Could be, changing energy. So sometimes it can be a little bit, feel a little bit much, but not always. So good things, but different things. So if you can know that there is a lot to come and be okay with kind of like where you are at this moment, but still being open to changing in this exact moment, then maybe there could be some magic that happens. And, Venus opposite Saturn often gets a lot of tones of like suppression, especially as Mars is coming into a square being in the superior position. So Mars is kind of a little bit stronger than kind of asserting itself on Venus a little bit. So this isn't the easiest week for Venus, as far as just being able to love and enjoy and be comfortable. But comfort doesn't make us move, right? We have to be a little bit uncomfortable in order to progress, change, move forward, something like that. So that's the astrology that I have this week, and those are the cards that we have for this week. Taking a peek in the comments here really quick before we moved on. I talked a lot, but there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of this changing, moving energy going on this week. Let's see. Nikita, February was a big month for you and your household. Yeah. So, seeing where it was then and where it is now, and what's changing within this. Hey Rob, good to see you here. And Melissa pulled the High Priestess card yesterday. So following up with that duality energy. There's a lot of that duality within this week. There's a lot of contrasting energies trying to come together, but not quite sure how to come together. That's where I say step back, have that discernment, have that clarity before you move forward. But yeah, so I think we'll go ahead and get into our meditation. I talked for a really long time, so it might kind of be a shorter one this week. If anybody drops out before the very end, I just want to remind everybody that next week will not be Tuesday, it'll be Sunday. So my options were either to pick a different day or not do a meditation next week. So we're going to do Sunday, 8:30 p.m., and the replay is always there if you are not able to catch it live. And let me know what you think about Sundays versus Tuesdays. I don't know. I've been contemplating switching, and I know I've mentioned that before, so not sure. All right, so moving into our meditation here, I'm going to take a nice deep breath first. I seek discernment and clarity as energy alternates. I seek discernment and clarity as energy alternates. As energy starts to exchange, as energy starts to work together or show each other how they are not working together, as we start to realize that there are different parts of our lives where we just say we've had enough and we're moving forward with something. I think that's a very specific, a very general, broad way to put everything that we have going on this week is just, I've had enough and I'm moving on. So then what do you have to do to move on? You have to there's some work that has to be done, right? Yep. All right, so I'm gonna light our intentional candle, and as I light the intentional candle, I'm gonna say the intention out loud. I encourage you to recite the intention with me, whether that's out loud in your own head, whether it's writing it down, whatever works best for you for where you are at the moment. So I'm going to light our intentional candle, white as always. Flame ignites and flame grows. As the flame grows, so does our intention. I seek discernment and clarity as energy alternates. I seek discernment and clarity as energy alternates. So I ask you again, what is changing within your life? Where has there been fluctuation? It could be multiple areas of your life that are all interconnected in one way or another. So there's these different parts that are changing, but they come together as a whole somehow, and then the whole itself changes. And how does that feel? Let's start by taking a moment to just check in with our breath. Taking a moment to just acknowledge the level of energy that we came here with today. Noticing how your breath feels, if it feels whole and fulfilling, or if it feels lacking in any way. And just as things are shifting and changing around us, just as energy is alternating, shifting, and exchanging amongst itself, we have that ability to change and shift our own breath. And when we change and shift our own breath, that is just the beginning of everything else that can be shifted and changed. Acknowledging our breath, acknowledging the level of energy that we came to this practice with. And then slowly we start to institute a level of fluctuation or a level of change, a level of alternation. As you take your next deep breath in, may your goal here be to have that breath slightly deeper, slightly more fulfilling than the inhale before it. And then as you get ready to exhale, that big, nice, full, deep breath that you took in, slowly start to exhale and let that air out nice and slow, allowing the exhale to be slightly longer and releasing slightly more air than the exhale that came before it. Continuing the breath in and out, breathing in, exhaling out. Inhaling the energy from the universe around us, exhaling our energy from our own body into the environment around us, in exchange back and forth. Working together to create the respiration cycle. You could isolate the inhale, you could isolate the exhale. The two halves need each other, just as Venus and Mars need each other. They are very different, very opposite. Their actions and the mechanisms make different things occur within our body. But essentially, they are two halves of a whole, two halves of one. creates a respiration process. As you continue breathing in, breathing out, allowing each breath to be slightly deeper than the one before it. I want you to visualize yourself on a boat, a small boat in the ocean. The boat can look however you would like it to be. It can be a big yacht, it can be a sailboat, it could be a small handmade wooden boat. But see yourself out in the middle of the ocean, on this boat. The waves below your boat are changing and shifting. The current is coming in and out, moving the water in different directions. The wind is shifting your boat and the water just slightly. On this boat, you are relaxed, you are calm, and you are flowing with wherever the boat takes you. You have lots of tools and navigation, emergency tools with you. You are prepared just in case you need to be. You have the ability to clearly judge situations and abilities, act quickly. But you are okay with the shifting water speed, and as the boat moves along, rhythmically, but differently each time. And as you look over the edge of the boat, you see an island off in the distance. You can't see a whole lot of details of the island, but you can notice that it is beautiful, full of lush greenery, plants and trees. You can only assume that there's lots of animals, edible plants, perhaps there's fruits and vegetables, herbs. Who knows what all could be on that island? But as you sit here comfortable on this vessel that you are riding through the ocean, this vessel that is supporting you and carrying you down your path, you know that you will make your way to that island. But in this moment, there is no need to hurry. There is no need to force. And that in itself is a revolutionary action. We are trained, we are conditioned to act and to react. This week, there could be actions and reactions. We could see it within ourselves. We could see it in others around us. We could see it in our community, in the groups that we are a part of, and the individuals that we know, as well as in ourselves. But here on this boat, where you have everything that you need at your disposal, there is a deep knowing that everything will go just as it should. And in time, we will get to that beautiful beautiful island and all of the treasures that it holds. All of the tensions, all of the polarization, all of the high stress tension that could possibly going on, all the changes, all the shifts, the paradigms and the structures and the beliefs. No matter how deeply they're ingrained, there's shifts happening and shifts changing. Or from the space within this boat, within this vessel, where we have everything that we need. There is no need to feel alarmed. No need to be anxious. Just a knowing that we will get to be exactly where we are supposed to be. I seek discernment and clarity as energy alternates. This week I want you to consider, am I reacting or am I overreacting? It can be a fine line for many of us, and I think especially this week as Mars and Venus start to get closer to this square, you're going to start feeling that now Tuesday through the rest of the week. There could be some tensions of opposites. There could be some need to look at many different angles of something and fully consider it. Both of them are in Mercury signs. So they're wanting to create something new within this new cycle that Mercury is starting. But how can these opposites work together? How can they come together to bring a grace and a tactfulness? How can they allow us to be subtle and loud at the same time? How can we be extroverted and introverted at the same time? It's holding that duality that is within each and every one of us. So thank you all for joining me this week. I appreciate each and every one of you that come back in any capacity that you are able to, when you are able to. So yeah, be open this week, but make sure that you're not moving too quickly. Make sure you're not just being open and falling into something because it's there. Make sure you are being discerning and that Saturn-Venus opposition, as you are looking for joy, as you are looking for Venus, looking in those small little crevices in the sign of Virgo, where do you need to fully consider things? Where is there could be something that you are missing? Where do we need to just, Saturn doesn't always say no, but sometimes it says not at this moment, or hang on a second, we have to consider something else. And that makes me think of the Two of Wands here itself. So yeah, there's this coming together of differences, and it can go one of two ways, like everything. Powerful, good shifts. Yep, I'm right there with you, Rob. Things are definitely shifting in my life, and I like it. Yes, Nikita, so meditation next week is going to be on Sunday. So instead of next Tuesday, which would be August 27th, meditation is going to be on Sunday, August 25th at 8:30 p.m. And if you need a reminder for that, the Facebook event is up for next Sunday. So next Sunday, 8:30 p.m., that is when I will see you. I usually release the intention on Sunday, and I'm just kind of thinking about that now. So let's say that the intention will come out Saturday, so that way you can see it Sunday before we meet here together. And let's keep out the powerful shifts and just flowing with things, knowing that if there are subtle but big changes happening at the same time, if they've been happening kind of on an internal or a behind the scenes level, those things are going to start to come to light, or maybe like the things that are happening as a result of what has been changing, what has been going on, like maybe it allows you to show up in a different way somehow or something like that, or there's just some sort of noticeable outward difference. So I will see you all next Sunday, August 25th at 8:30 p.m. and I hope you all have a great transformational shifting week. And don't get too tied up in some of the stresses and tensions that could be possibly there. So this intention for this week is a little bit more of like a searching, like I seek discernment and clarity. I know that this is a time in my life where I'm going to need to see things clearly, have that ability to clearly judge things, and go forward with them. So I hope you all have a great week, and I will see you on Sunday. So reach out at any time, and yeah, I'll see you later. Have a great week. Bye, everybody.